Now to the 28th MTN Business World Executive Breakfast Meeting, where business leaders have been discussing the future of work amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, CEO of Fidelity Bank Ghana, Julian Opuni, has been giving indications that things will certainly not return to normal after the pandemic in the work environment. According to him, work output instead of the hours one puts in would be key.
COVID-19 has actually expedited that process, and if you look at the most recent happenings, especially in our part of the world, and the lockdown situation where you still have to have a clear business continuity plan in place, which enables you to carry on offering services to your customers, and also safeguarding your staff, measuring productivity, etc. That meant that you had just a few days to react to all the stuff that you had written down, which you were not hoping to necessarily put into place without something like this happening. It's also important to bear in mind that this expedited process has meant that we can now leverage on new opportunities and there'll be a changed behavior going forward. Without a doubt, once this passes, things will not be the same. And I think any business will be fairly naive to think that they can just go back to the old way of working. If you look in our environment, if you like, the remote way of working is now effectively here to stay. And certain capabilities that we didn't think were available suddenly have become very evident. Meetings happening not necessarily with 8-10 people in a room, but the ability to just do lots of meetings in a very short space of time has now become the way of work. And we've had to create that capability. And even the protocols around working remotely and having meetings and teleconference with your colleagues. One of the things also is about role reassignment, because with the level of traffic and activity, etc., we now have to quickly scale up certain parts of the business that may not be seen as evidently critical to the delivery of our services. And you still have to do it in an e-learning kind of environment and train and get people ready to be able to do those services, because the customer needs have been changed significantly as a result of what's going on. It also means that we've had to establish, and all businesses will have to establish new ways of measuring productivity and activity of your staff, because when you have people scattered over various locations and all over the place, how do you still use your traditional ways of measuring output? And I think what is evident now is because of the rotation system and the fact that people are working from home, etc., it's no longer about hours worked, it's really around output. And you have to put in place those systems that enable businesses measure output and see the productivity, of their staff.
Ms. Opuni asked that cybersecurity must be one of the topmost concerns, since most workers are increasingly using the internet to get the job done.
Cyber, especially in our environment, has now become a real issue, cybersecurity. As you migrate a lot of activity and transactions on digital platforms, both for internal working and also for serving your customers, it now becomes high priority. So every organization will have to now reprioritize all their initial projects, even from as recently as January, because now there's a reprioritization, which means that you now have to react to the realities of your market. And so cyber and all the budgeting around cyber that normally is over a prolonged period because it's a fluid, ongoing system is no longer the case, because you have to create that readiness and the ability to ensure that you protect your business in the short term. Maximizing space usage. So suddenly with the rotation, it's become very evident that if you look in your work environment, you probably don't need as much space as you have. Yeah. Hot desking, which used to be a buzzword maybe years and years ago, now becomes very evident. And a lot of, if you like, head office functions. And I always separate it from the frontline businesses in the likes of a financial institution and the back office processes, where in the current environment, they have to go into that mode of working where there's the hot desking. That means you don't need as much space. There's efficiency creation as a result of that. But on the front end as well, you now have to create the space for social distancing in your frontline delivery of services. You have to have discussions around the forced migration of activity onto digital platforms, which is something that we've been talking about over a period of time. But now the psyche of our customers is they don't want to find themselves in an environment where they are unnecessarily exposed to potential infection. They don't want to be in a situation where they have to go out of their current comfort zones. And so you have to create the readiness for the digital platforms. It means that things like channel optimization, and for a banking institution, channels are anywhere in which we can interface with our customers. So you're talking about bricks and mortar branches, ATMs, and then there's the digital alternative channels, which are your app, USSD, internet banking, all of those sorts of things. And that means that they have to be on a high state of readiness and availability for your customers. And there'll be a forced migration in certain instances to protect both your business and them. So I think in a nutshell, that's the reality of the current environment we're in.
Well, the CEO of Fidelity Bank there, Julian Opuni, discussing the future of work after the COVID-19 pandemic. Obviously, things are not going to be the same